各位觀眾大家好，歡迎收睇26分鐘見證實錄。從今年9月份新學期開始之後，BC 省所有嘅校區咧，幼稚園至9年級嘅學生成績表將會一致採用省級熟練程度評量表 （Proficiency Scale） 以取代字母等級評分嘅模式。而對於10至到12年級學生嘅成績表先至係會保留字母等級以及百分比制度㗎，以便學生配合升讀專上教育要求。但係省教育廳呢一個改動咧，就隨即引嚟唔少爭議。有部分嘅家長對於評分制度嘅轉變咧有所顧慮。BC 省府決定由今年秋季新學期開始，所有校區嘅幼稚園至9年級學生成績表都將會取消 A、B、C、D 字母評分或分數制，一律採用 Proficiency Scale 省級熟練程度評量表。而10至12年級嘅學生就沿用字母或者係分數成績報告。省府希望此舉能夠降低學生彼此之間嘅分數比較，專注自身嘅學習狀況。
We really want the students to have the skills to excel in the best possible way. Give them the self-assessment skills, critical thinking, goal setting, so that they are better equipped for the future world.
有教師代表亦都表示，時代正在發展，社會喺度進步，實施上百年嘅評分制度應該隨住社會發展而進步。
As a society, we've shifted from an industrial model to a post-industrial society. And the letter grades served an industrial model of society quite well. But now that we're shifting towards a high-tech society, education has to also shift. So this proficiency scale is one part of a larger shift or a larger evolution in education.
但係此舉就引起一啲家長嘅擔憂。
我本人不大傾向於這種換來換去，而不是我說這個系統好和這個系統好，只要給我一個套完整的系統呢，這個是我比較希望的。而居家國多年嘅安先生一家居住喺卑斯素里，現時大女已經係大學畢業，細女就讀素里地區一間中學。該地區唔係試點城市，因此素里地區將會喺今年嘅9月份開始取消8同9年級原定字母等級同埋分數評分，同幼稚園至7年級一樣，改為採用省級熟練程度評量表。安先生對於政府改變評分制度嘅初衷表示理解。Proficiency 它針對於孩子 skill 來評價，說得更精確一點。
佢亦都表示喺過去，無論係細女以省級熟練程度評量表，定係大女經歷過嘅 A、B、C、D 評分制度，佢哋嘅成績表，安先生都有仔細咁了解。佢發現其實無論係邊一種嘅評分制度，老師最後嘅評語先至係佢會特別留意去睇㗎，因為佢表示老師先至係最清楚了解學生喺學業上嘅進度。
這4個單詞和 A、B、C、D 沒有太大的意義，因為它只是一個詞彙，就是一個分類的名稱而已，對吧？但是實際上應該是在它的精華應該體現在它的最後那個評語上，對吧？它系統不一樣了，它對孩子能更精確的描述，因為我們家長不能通過一個詞來描述一個孩子的這個能力，那就跟 A、B、C、D 沒有任何區別了。
但對此，安先生亦都有一啲顧慮。
考大學還是要看這篇分數的，那你必須要轉回去，那對於我們家長和孩子，就是怎麼能夠，我舉個例子，孩子包括他選專業怎麼選哈，他哪門比較好，可以學，他沒有一套連貫的體系，我們就感覺如果突然變到這種又變成 A、B、C 的話，我們會比較 confused，會比較疑惑，就這些孩子到底成績會怎麼樣，跟前面比又是有什麼區別？因為它是兩套不同的體系哈。
安先生對此亦都舉例話，喺大女仲係高中時期，佢就非常之希望今後喺大學學習藝術專業，因為大女嘅高中成績都係以字母或者係百分比評分制。唔係同家長商量日後就學意向嘅時候，安先生同太太通過成績表，好清楚女兒喺美術成績十分之優秀，因此認為女兒嘅選擇係合適佢㗎。但係現時就擔心好難從省級熟練程度評量表之中清楚了解到細女擅長啲乜嘢。因此佢擔心日後對於細女喺選擇學校同埋專業意向上，佢好難俾到意見。
相對來講，孩子壓力沒有那麼大。就是孩子聽着就相對來講，過去那種
你这不及格啊，就是我们中文叫不及格，或者是分很低啊，60分、70分，孩子压力会小。但是对于这样的话，我们家長是否能很好的鞭策孩子？有時家長就是其他家長也是一樣，跟我反映，他就感覺到無所適從了。
咪知道數理將會喺秋季改變針對8同9年級嘅評分，改為採用省級熟練程度評量表之後，安先生表示，一啲嘅朋友亦都反映出佢哋嘅擔憂。佢哋主要係憂慮10年級開始又要轉翻去傳統嘅字母及分數制評分。咁個時候，如果子女突然發現自己學習成績唔理想，可能引發心理焦慮。
孩子在熟悉的一個體系，他在這系統裡頭比較舒適以後，一旦變成 ABCD 的話，就是相當來講，我們叫水落石出。假如60分，那個才80分，沒有想象的這麼好那這時候孩子會有壓力，尤其是我們家長會不自覺的，因為我們給孩子一下，你看你到10年級才這樣，或者是他這個分數這樣要是如果是一貫評分系統，我們就會慢慢的就說給他補課呀，或者是來促進他呀，或者如果這門課他學得不好的話，我們就想各種辦法家教啊，就來促進他嘛。那現在這樣體系呢，就是一是孩子壓力會比較大，我們家作為家長也不能熟視無睹，對吧？我們也不能當不發生，我們肯定對孩子是一個我們叫一個 gap， 就是一個 gap， 就是兩個不同體系中間肯定是有個 gap。那孩子像你說的這種青春期，或者是那種本來就是這個心理不穩定的，他對他的未來也不大了解，而且他的成績跟過去的體系又不一樣，而且又面臨到抉擇，因為從10年級開始就要大概有點方向，我去學什麼。
安先生表示自己女兒學業方面一直好優秀，佢亦都表示對於自覺性高、自制力好嘅學生嚟講，任何一種評分制度可能影響都唔大。咁相反，對於自制力較弱嘅學生，可能兩種評分系統嘅差異性帶嚟嘅負面影響就較大啦。
我理解，如果是對一個對自己想做什麼，而且對這個自己的這個 learning， 因為孩子每上學都有一個 learning map， 就是說他要學什麼東西，他對自己的 control 非常好，他知道自己學了什麼，不學什麼。那這種孩子的話，那相對來講，我覺得這兩套體系差別不大，因為都是很優秀，不管什麼體系。但是如果對有些孩子，他本身對自己的學習的內容，對 learning map， 對這個他自己學習不是很上心，因為現在有很多東西來干擾他，遊戲啊或各種各樣的這種活動，你知道都是小孩子，他們有可能對自己沒法 control，就需要家長來幫他，對吧？那這種情況下，我剛才說的情況會發生。
安先生認為，如果想真正做到避免學生以成績互相比較，咁考大學採用嘅 GPA 形式、字母同分數制，亦都應該隨之改變。
從我個人來講，一個教育體系的一個評價體系的改變，而不能只是從某一個階段或某一個片段來去更改，它要一個整個的系統，有可能慢慢的會改。但是大學的系統和整個的這個，包括這個孩子上大學這套評價體系，都要跟相應改變，才能夠實現最終的對孩子這種通過能力來培養來評價。
就安先生個人嚟講，佢認為一套連貫嘅評分系統，可能對於學生嘅自身學習同埋家長輔導同跟進子女嘅學業嚟講，都會有所幫助。
實際呢，我比較傾向於一個連貫的系統。就是說 ABCD 也好 ，Proficiency Level 也好，這種 Scale 也好，最好是一套連貫的系統。這樣呢，我們可以 follow 這個系統來，就是能夠來輔導孩子。我本人不大傾向於這種換來換去，而不是我說這個系統好和這個系統好，只要給我一個套完整的系統呢，這個是我比較希望的。
對於家長嘅憂慮，卑詩教育及兒童保育廳長辛若娜就表示，作為一項試點計劃，從2016年開始，卑詩省近一半嘅校區已經開始使用省級熟練程度評量表。喺實施計劃之前，有向家長進行過全面嘅諮詢。
When we, as I mentioned, when the pilot happened, and then we did the survey with number of parents and caregivers, a lot of feedback. One thing that they wanted to see with the proficiency scale is just not the scale part, but also the descriptive comments, like some more communication, more descriptive feedback from the teachers, and that has been incorporated. They also wanted more time to know more about it, because this was something new. People need some time to be familiarized with anything new that we are introducing, like our brain needs to acclimatize to that one. And that's one reason that we delayed the implementation by 1 year, so that we wanted parents, caregivers, students to have all the information required before we implemented.
改變評分體制嘅初衷係為咗幫助學生了解佢哋嘅優勢同挑戰，並且為此自主咁制定目標，而唔再係將分數或者字母成為家長對子女嘅衡量表，以及學生之間互相比較嘅工具。
I remember when we were in the school system, we were just focusing on the how much we can memorize. But the world that we are living right now is like asking us more than that. How that what we are learning in our school, in our education system, how we are able to apply that in the practical sense, and especially for the future.
對於安先生以及一啲家長嘅擔憂，改變後嘅評級制度可能會對子女升大學造成影響，咁佢就咁樣回應。
But the whole purpose of this change is to develop the confidence in the child, to help them set the goals, to help them gain those critical thinking skills. So having that, I think, giving them the tools to succeed. So that's what the goal is. And having that fully descriptive feedback coming from the teacher and having that feedback with the parents as well, sitting is helping them set up those goals for themselves and helping them prepare for the grad years, because those we all know that how important those years are, grade 10, 11, and 12. So I personally feel that they would be much better equipped when they go into grade 10. As I said, the assessment is the same from kindergarten to 9, and from kindergarten to 12. It is just the reporting policy that is changing, but that reporting policy will be that will be helping. That is what our hope is, that it will really help the students to gain the confidence and gaining the skills that they require to succeed in the education system.
辛若娜表示，佢自己亦都有一個啱啱讀完9年級嘅女兒。佢嘅女兒嘅校區已經係針對8同9年級學生轉為省級熟練程度評量模式多年。咁作為母親身份嘅佢，對於延續該衡量制度，佢認為係有益㗎。
I have 2 kids, and my older one has already graduated from the university, so he just got the letter grades, and that was the only thing I was used to, and that's how I took it. My younger one just went through her grade 9. She just finished her grade 9, and in her school they had the proficiency scale. They had already implemented that, like that was one of the pilots, and I honestly found it quite helpful, because that gave me the opportunity to communicate with the teacher, like having that feedback, more descriptive feedback, telling me about my child's strengths, where she's doing well, like what are her strengths, and also giving me an opportunity to understand like how I can support the child, and what the child she herself needs to do to go one step ahead. So I think that was a really good opportunity to have those conversations rather than just the letter grades. Then you just get the letter grade and okay, you didn't get an A, you just got a B, or you just got this. It is like much more descriptive, and I think for their well-being and even for her confidence, like having that comfort that she has, like sitting with either with the parent or with the teacher and discussing those that scale, I think that she has been able to develop those skills that I really wanted my child to gain. So I feel pretty confident with the proficiency scale personally.
下一節翻嚟，我哋會去了解對於取消8同9年級學生字母等級評分，轉為省級熟練程度評量表 Proficiency Scale 表示支持嘅教育相關組織同埋個人，佢哋嘅觀點又係乜嘢？歡迎翻嚟節目時間。對於省教育廳今次嘅宣佈溫哥華教育局、BC教師聯會以及部分教師個人都表示支持。佢哋支持嘅依據又係乜嘢啦？同傳統模式評分系統唔同 ，Proficiency Scale 唔再係籠統咁以考試結果將學生劃分等級，而係以4個評量詞彙對學生嘅表現進行描述性嘅評價。根據省府嘅資料就顯示 ，Emerging 萌生表示孩子開始理解某個學習領域嘅內容，佢哋仍在學習，但可能需要更多嘅支援先至能夠向前邁進。 Developing 發展代表孩子喺某個學習領域理解一啲嘢，但係仍然有其他方面需要努力。Proficient 精通意味學生達到精通完全理解學習內容。Extending 拓展係指學生表現出更深刻嘅理解，並且能夠以唔同嘅方式去應用學習到嘅知識。咁對於延續呢一個評分模式，直至到9年級，多個教育相關領域嘅人士都給予支持。
The shift towards the performance, the proficiency scale, has to do with the fundamental shift in what is the intention of assessment. In other words, with letter grades, the intention was the end product. We were concerned about the end product. What is the end? But not much attention was paid to everything that happens in between, up to the point where you get to the end product. So with the proficiency scale, what the intention is quite different in that the intention is we're trying to get students to focus on what is the process behind their learning. In other words, do they understand what they're doing? What is the process behind that? So that is quite a different shift with respect to intention.
溫哥華校區從2021年嘅學年開始，8到9年級嘅學生作為試點，就已經沿用省級熟練程度評量表。溫哥華學校局副局長 Pedro de Silva 表示，家長以及學生對此嘅反應都非常正面。
Generally, marks-based assessment traditionally has always been summative. So a lot of times students, for example, will take a test at the beginning of the year and they may get 70%. It's very difficult in that 30% where they don't get rewarded for their learning, and maybe later on the course they actually do, that actually doesn't get reflected. Whereas in the proficiency scale, it's pretty transparent in terms of the student's learning. So even though a student may take longer to develop their understanding of a curricular outcome, they can get credit for that towards the end of a course. And so it actually it supports learning and assessment in a more authentic way.
但卑斯大學教育系教授 Victor Barr 認為，部分非試點校區嘅家長對 Proficiency Scale 仲未完全了解，對於4個評量詞彙更加係模糊。咁所以佢覺得省府喺對計劃嘅宣傳諮詢方面嘅工作做得唔夠。
I think what needs to be done is I think this needs to be really correctly explained to parents. I think their concern is for the fear of the unknown. I think the system as a whole hasn't done a really good job in communicating this to parents. In other words, why are we shifting? What are we shifting towards? What is the rationale for the shift? And what is the shift itself? So I feel that, and this communication, I don't think it can be done. It's being done via websites. In other words, it's being communicated on the ministry website. But I think what would be much more effective is if this was communicated personally by teachers and by administrators. So in other words, in the form of school open houses or when parents are coming in for parent-teacher interviews, I think there needs to be a much more overt expression of what is the performance skill, what exactly is it, and why is it being implemented.
有住超過15年小學教育經驗嘅佢更表示，現時喺學習方面，唔少學生只係在乎結果，唔係取得好成績之後就以為係學習嘅結束，咁樣對於學生持續發展造成影響。佢亦表示，對於冇取得優異成績嘅學生，字母同分數制亦都極大影響到佢哋嘅信心。
This new modality is trying to do is it's operating from a strength-based perspective. In other words, everybody knows something. Some know more, some know less. So everybody knows something. So in other words, let's operate from that mindset that everybody has something. They come with something. So it's acknowledging the strengths that you come with and building on those. Whereas with a letter grade, what it's saying is that if you're a C- or D, you have no strengths, you have nothing. You come to the table with nothing. So it's quite a different mindset. But if that idea is being continually reinforced, I mean, that goes, imagine the anxiety and frustration that student must feel, that you're continually being told you're a failure, being labeled, and with a negative label. And eventually that label will crystallize. So if you reinforce that idea multiple times, that student will start to believe, I am a failure, which is not the case. Everybody comes to the table with something.
對於有家長提出，如果唔採用字母或分數制度，學生之間冇彼此衡量標準，難以真正咁發掘到學生嘅優勢。佢就表示，死記硬背嘅學習方式唔可取。
For example, in Asiatic societies, like in India, they use percentages and letter grades. But the pedagogical focus of some of those education systems, I think, is more of a rote, like a memorization. In other words, memorization still seems to be the primary means to learn. Whereas in Canadian education, it's not, we realize that memorization has a very short shelf life. In other words, you can memorize factoids and they'll stay with you for a very short period of time. But what's more important is the larger story. In other words, understanding the process behind what you're trying to memorize. So in other words, the systems are quite different. And in some regards, you would say that they're incompatible. So when you have students that are coming from overseas where they utilize percentages and they utilize the memorization format as a primary means to learn, and they come into an environment where it's not about memorization, it's about understanding. And that's the important part, because once you understand how to get the answer, then you can transfer those skills to different situations. Whereas if you just learn facts, you cannot necessarily apply one fact to a different problem. So it's learning the process. So once you learn those processes, you can apply them across different problems.
省府延續 Proficiency Scale 嘅初衷係減少班級內同學之間以分數當作互相競爭嘅工具，但係有家長就質疑社會本來就係具有互相競爭關係㗎。咁日後申請大學就業亦都係會存在互相競爭，質疑省府目前嘅做法係咪脱離現實？咁對此，曾經有住12年教學經驗嘅卑斯教師聯會主席 Clint Johnston 就咁樣回應。
I think there certainly are elements of competition in the real world, but there are also places where there is not competition. And interestingly, I would argue that in many jobs, you don't get a letter grade. You aren't competing directly with the other employees in the building. You certainly will get reviewed on your work performance. But again, that will be a thorough assessment. It won't be a letter grade. It will be a discussion of what you're doing well, what you're not doing well, whether the employer thinks that you need to do better in some areas. But I'm not aware of any professions where you will be compared directly through a percentile to the other workers in your workplace. So I think my answer is that we, the Federation, and I disagree fundamentally with the idea that there has to be competition for children because they will compete that way in the world at large. I certainly would agree that life includes many struggles. And part of preparing students for the real world is giving them the tools to manage disappointment, to manage not achieving a goal they may have set for themselves in a positive way. So there's a lot of things that relate to that, but I don't think that kind of competition in terms of direct comparison to your classmates over percentiles, I wouldn't agree that that's a necessary part of education.
教育專業人士亦都反映，社會發展步伐快速，傳統咁以分數劃分等級制度嘅評估模式已經過時，唔再適合於現時以及未來嘅發展。咁相反，培養學生自我反省同目標設定嘅技能，先至能夠俾學生配合日益發展嘅社會。
A B and a C plus are quite different to most people, but they're actually only 1% apart. So, I think this idea that a letter grade gives you a complete understanding of whether your child's fine or not, or good, or best, or not, I don't think that's accurate. It's one of the indicators, and then you need to look at the other information that comes.
As we're graduating students, I think the way they are assessed and the way they learn and how we report out their marks and develop a critical thinking skills and communication skills are going to better prepare them for a very changing world. And generally speaking, the mark system is a system we've had for hundreds of years here. And as a system, if we try to really change the way we assess and have students develop those skills, we're very confident that they're going to be better prepared for when they graduate to be successful in university and also in future jobs and employment.
好啦，今集嘅節目時間差唔多啦，咁喺下個星期開始，1連6集，會為大家播出26分鐘見證實錄精華回顧，敬請收睇。如果觀眾對我哋嘅節目有啲乜嘢意見嘅話，係好歡迎大家以電郵嘅方式同我哋聯絡㗎。咁如果觀眾想上網重溫翻今集嘅節目，亦都可以上到去我哋嘅網站，點擊節目重溫一欄。再見。